Oh, hi everyone. Sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much for joining today. Welcome to today's episode of Stock to Finish, a series dedicated to help people complete what they've started. So, we started this series 16 days ago and we were supposed to talk about task management on day 13, but that got moved to day 16. However, we've done a couple of things in the past couple of days. The first thing we've done is identify who is stuck. We said an individual that is stuck is somebody that is unable to make progress on their goals. So this is someone that has a chronic attitude towards procrastination. They are chronic procrastinators. They're not people that procrastinate once in a while, but they get sidetracked. They're passionate about their goals. They do want to achieve it. The motivation is there, the zeal is there. They start, and all of a sudden, they cannot continue. So, what's preventing them from finishing what they've started? What's preventing them from staying on task? What's preventing them from doing what they want to do? We've established a couple of things the past 16 days. First things first, there is nothing wrong with setting goals, and people do not have problems setting goals. So the issue wasn't setting goals. The issue wasn't attending workshops. The issue wasn't wanting to build the best version of yourself or your personal development, your growth, whatever you choose to call it. That wasn't the problem. The problem were a couple of things we identified, and majorly the attitude to work. So people see work as a chore, as something difficult, as punishment, and because we see work as punishment, sometimes we have a negative attitude towards it. And when we see certain things as work, certain things are no longer hobbies, we get distracted. We no longer want to do it. We lose interest. We abandon ship. So, how do we stay on board the ship till we get to our final destination and not jump ships? How do we ensure we stay on track? That's the topic for this series. Now, good evening. Hey, Victor, good evening. So please let me know if you can hear me on other platforms. Like I said, I'm live on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. So let me know if you can hear me on these platforms. And I think I need to switch off my fan. Fantastic. That should be a lot better. So how do you finish what you've started? How do you accomplish the goals you want to accomplish? Before we do that, I think we should do a little recap. We've talked about the fact that you have to show up for yourself every day. It's not something you do once and then you abandon it. Showing up for yourself every day could mean resting, but it could mean understanding that the work you're doing is something that you should do for yourself, not just for any other person. We also looked at understanding your current task management system. We talked about task management, and today we're going to be looking at how to manage tasks. Now, everybody and their mothers, everybody in the world keeps saying this. I love multitasking. I multitask. I'm able to multitask. I'm able to do multiple things at the same time. But is multitasking really the way forward? Or is there a way we can actually focus on deep work, on work that matters, and complete it by what we call monotasking? That is picking one task, especially when it's your maxi task, and focusing on it. We divided tasks into three categories. That's for us on the stock to finish journey. Other people could divide tasks into different things. We said there is a mini task, that is something that takes you 15 minutes. There's the midi task, something that takes you, let's say, 1 hour, and then there's deep work in the maxi task that takes your maximum attention and you need to focus on it. So what we're talking about here when we talk about monotasking versus multitasking is that monotasking should be when you are doing tasks that matters. So what does it mean? It's focusing on a single activity at a time. So you cannot be writing your book and driving, but you're dedicating your attention and energy exclusively to one task until it's completed. So you're being like a stamp. If you put a stamp on an envelope, it stays on that envelope till it gets to its destination. If you wrap a gift with sellotape, that sellotape stays on that product till it's open. So why can't we be like that when it gets to our task? Why don't we stick to one thing until we get to our designated milestone? We define that our milestones are defined by us, or we identify that milestones are defined by us. And then multitasking involves attempting to handle multiple tasks simultaneously or switching between tasks rapidly. And this divides your attention and resources among multiple activities at the same time. So when it comes to the task that matters. Now, I'm speaking to freelancers, I'm speaking to people that work from home, people that manage social media, especially if you're working for yourself. The tendency for you to make mistakes if you're multitasking is high. But you can't be baking your cake and doing running a marathon at the same time. You have to focus on one thing at a time. So that's why we move for multitask. We are against multitasking, especially when it's work that matters. Now, why am I talking about multitasking and monotasking? We're talking about task management. We're going to talk about different task management tools, two in particular, one that I use and one that I am trying to use regularly. So, the reason I say don't switch from task to task is most times I've realized that when I multitask, I have to do that task again. I will have to ensure that I am not able to do it twice if I monotask. What I have discovered is it may seem more efficient for me to be doing two things at the same time. For example, I can decide to be live, I can decide to be creating a graphic design and then recording a podcast at the same time. My attention will be divided. And once your attention is divided, especially when it comes to deep work, you don't get the best results. So what we're looking at is how can we get the best results from what we do? And that's why we advocate for monotasking. I started monotasking like 4 years ago. As in, I started talking about monotasking a while back, but I really got into monotasking 4 years ago. Especially when I wrote my book, I actually got into monotasking, and this is what I realized. When I was multitasking, I had to do task again. But when I was monotasking, I focused on only that task. I was getting better results. It had less errors. It was more effective. I wasn't as frustrated or stressed as I was when I was multitasking. Now, what I'm giving as suggestions, some people could say, "Oh, I multitask, DK. I'm able to bake and write at the same time." That's that's different for you. Whatever we're saying is, it's a best practice approach. Pick what works for you and do it. Now, this is a place I'm willing to explore: time blocking. Lots of people talk about time blocking, blocking out time to do certain activities. We've talked about controlling your calendar, and last week I mentioned that you should have access to you could use your Google Calendar, your Apple Calendar, but have a digital calendar that you could access anywhere, and you are able to block out time for certain activities. When we are working, when we are doing things that matter, when we want to finish the goals that we've started, when we want to complete what we've started, one way we can do it is by time blocking in advance. Most of the things that I am suggesting are things that we do in advance, not things that we do when we are actually working or when we are actually trying to do the work. So, the reason I say plan in advance is this: if you plan in advance, all the resources you need will be there. For example, if you are a chef and you want to make a meal, it's not the moment you want to cook that you realize that you don't have the eggs, you don't have certain things. But if you have created time to go through your inventory, you will know what you have and what you don't have. So, what I would suggest is something like that: block out time on your calendar where you're doing specific activities. But let's hear what time blocking is about. It's a technique that involves scheduling blocks of time for different tasks or activities. But remember, with time blocking, you're monotasking still, not multitasking. It's schedule specific time for different activities or tasks throughout your day. For example, I time block emails. Although I say I don't know how to do time blocking, but one thing I know that I have done is only emails. So I have specific times in the day where I will check my WhatsApp and emails. And if somebody on my team wants to talk to me and I have to go to WhatsApp, I just say, "Come on the call quickly. Let's have a conversation." Why am I doing that? Because I want to have specific time for specific things. I want to be able to respond properly to things and not rush into things the way I used to, because I don't want to make errors. So, what happens with time blocking? You allocate time for that dedicated event or responsibility, and it enhances your focus. So, rather than just relying on your to do list, it prevents you from being reactive. It's wonderful to have a to do list. Remember, we talked about having a list, a central place where you have every single thing you want to do. And I always talk about thinking on paper, writing out everything you want to do on paper. So you have your to do list, everything that you want to do. But having a to do list doesn't mean that you will do it. if you've not created that time and put out that activity on your calendar, it doesn't get done. So by the time you rely on your to-do list alone, you're not getting anything accomplished. All right. So, what do? We set uninterrupted time for specific activities, improves products, focus, improves productivity, and it's an effective way to manage your time and ensure the important tasks receive dedicated attention. And if you are not um doing this, it could be detrimental. So, how do you do this? Get ready like you are going to the office. Set your alarm. If you are someone that wants to take a bath and wear nice clothes, do that. Set alarm, but get ready for this time blocking stuff like you are going for something important. You should have the dedication and discipline to make your commitment to your commitment and keep your commitment to your commitment. What do I mean by that? When we time block, we're making a commitment on our calendars, and this commitment is something that we must keep. So you're not telling yourself that you will time block and then you don't come for that meeting. So that's time blocking. My favorite way of working, even if I time block, is the Pomodoro technique. I don't know if you've heard of Pomodoro technique, but to me it's fantastic because it helps you actually get work done. So with the Pomodoro technique, what I do is you set a timer. I can tell a story of how I found out about Pomodoro, but it was through YouTube. I saw this man talking about a tomato timer, and he was telling an amazing story about it. And he was talking about the fact that he was using his wife's kitchen timer when he started working. And this is what I do. Most times when we work, we don't take breaks. So the Pomodoro technique helps you walk in 25 minutes circles and then take breaks in between. So most times you say you're going to do something, you don't do it. The way to do it is we've dedicated that time, you blocked out that time. So we've talked about time blocking. The time has been blocked. What are you doing with the time that has been blocked? You want to actually carry out this activity. So you set your timer for 25 minutes, take a 5 minute break, set for 25 minutes, take a 5 minute break. So you do that 4 times, and that's one whole circle. Then you reward yourself with a longer break after that. Why are you doing this? Because you're either going to overwork yourself or you don't get anything done. You could get distracted, but you could most times when we desire to work or we desire to write or we desire to do something, what's that goal? Let me ask a question. What's that goal that you've been trying to achieve for a while that you just can't find the time to achieve? What's that task? What's that thing that you keep putting off that you know you should do? And once you do it, every other thing will align. Everybody has that thing that they want to do, but they never create time to do it. Something like using the Pomodoro technique where you work for 25 minutes and take breaks can help you accomplish those things that you've been putting aside for a while. And for me, that makes it amazing. Um, so how do you ensure that whether you're using Pomodoro, you're time blocking, what do you do, especially when you work from home? Now, this is dedicated to people that works from home. Stick to your regular work hours. Don't say, "Oh, I am my own boss. I'm a freelancer. That means I'm free." I always say jokingly, as a freelancer, your time is not free, your energy is not free, your focus is not free, your services are not free. So you have to understand that you need to have working hours. So rather than saying, I will do this later, later is not a time. Create regular work hours for yourself and stick to those work hours. Then what do you do now? You create a timeline for each task. Every single task has a timeline. Say, oh, I remember I showed you my timeline for my blog post. I have to break things down. So if I want to write a blog post, I have to think about the topic, I have to think about the team, I have to think about my outline. So these are separate tasks. So I will take write this all these tasks will be written down, and I will pick one task at a time and do it. What's your definition of a task? Maybe your definition of task is different from mine. So, what do you work on when you've decided on your task? Work on the most important thing first. Some people will say prioritize your task and create specific milestones. Some people will say work on the smallest, the quickest, the one that you can get quickest results from. So work on your mini tasks so you get that adrenaline shift that you need to move you. But For me, it's do what this thing. Think about your priorities. Is there a milestone you need to reach? Are there deadlines? If there are deadlines, work on the ones that have those deadlines that you meet. And when you're working on anything, because especially if it's the goal that you want to work on, try and ensure that it aligns with your schedule and with your family. You don't want to schedule things when you are supposed to be somewhere else. So you are able to manage your time, but it's in line with those around you. Now, this is something that I will say. If you are playing, play. If you are scrolling on social media, scroll. I've given you permission. If you're scrolling on social media and somebody says, "Why are you scrolling? Why are you just sitting down there scrolling?" Say, "DK gave me permission." When you're scrolling, scroll on social media. Say, "Okay, for 1 hour, I'm going to lie down there and do nothing but scroll on TikTok and just watch." But when you are walking, walk. So your policy should be, when I walk, walk. When I play, I play. Be fully engaged with the task in front of you. Why? Sometimes our divided attention prevents us from functioning properly. If you decide to watch a football match, watch that football match, do it with your chest. But when you want to make regular and meaningful progress that will boost your productivity, you have to be fully engaged, completely engaged. You cannot compromise. So choose which one you want to do. Do you want to be fully engaged, or do you want to play? When you play, play. When you walk, walk. Now, this is something that so many people are learning, and I think we should all learn it also. So, when it comes to task management, after you've done all these things, you've chosen Pomodoro, you've done whatever you want to do, you're multitasking, you're monotasking. There are sometimes people can come with distractions, and some of these distractions can seem amazing. So it's a good project, it's a good opportunity, but you are working on your book, you're working on your deadline, you're working on something, and someone brings a fantastic idea. Although it may seem great, one thing we need to learn about task management is the ability to say no. So learn to say no. Learn to say no to people, even if you hurt them. Learn to say no to projects that do not align with your goals. You don't have to be everywhere. You have to be selective about the places you divide your energy, your focus, your time. See, time. I know it's cliche to say this. Time is money. You have 168 hours to spend. If you say yes to somebody, you have to give the person 6 hours or 8 hours or 10 hours. That's 10 hours you cannot get back. So out of your 168 hours in a week, sometimes no is the currency that you will exchange for that time you have to keep. So just think about it, that no is a currency that you are exchanging for the time that you have to keep. And it's essential to know this. All right. Now, women, we are guilty of this. Don't sweat the small stuff when it comes to getting tasks. There are some small stuff, there are some little things that could happen, things will go wrong. You've Don't get upset and stressed about every minor issue. It is possible to be stressed. Sometimes you actually are genuinely stressed, but try your best as much as possible not to sweat the small stuff. And I think that's a bit self-explanatory, but let's talk a little bit more about it. When I say don't sweat the small stuff, what are the small stuff that comes to your mind? What are the things that just make you agitated? For me, it's if somebody says they're coming, not Austin Bible study says they're coming by 2 and by 4 they are not there, I'm already stressed. Rather than enjoying the presence and every other person, I'm stressed about the person that is supposed to bring chicken that did not arrive. There was a day we were having Bible study. Everybody was supposed to bring something. Someone brought chicken, someone brought sweet potato pies. The person that was supposed to bring jollof rice did not arrive. I was already upset. I couldn't even enjoy the moment that I was there to eat the sweet potato pie. When we sweat the small stuff, we miss out. Now, we've talked about tools and techniques and things that you can use. I wanted to introduce a couple of project management tools, and I've highlighted Pomodoro. Batch tasking is something that I don't really agree with completely, but I think it's something that should be discussed. But let's talk about techniques and tools. What tools do you use? I use simple tools. I built a second brain. Now, a second brain is like you've duplicated yourself digitally and put it somewhere. And that's just the best way to describe it. I know there may be a bit more details into it, but we've talked about building systems, not goals. And part of the systems we are building is a task management system. So sometimes there's things you can do on paper, but there are some things that you have to do digitally. Now, what phone do you use? What do you have? So we've talked about Google Calendar. You don't need to pay for any extra thing. Use what you have. Use your Google Calendar. Take advantage of it. You can color code your task. So all your hospital tasks could be yellow. For me, all my accountability appointments are blue. So whenever I see blue on my calendar, I know there's an accountability appointment coming up. I don't want to show my calendar. I will have shown it because there are some things there that may be personal. But I said all this to say this: when we are getting things done, there's a tendency for us to actually lose focus, lose momentum, not enjoy the process. So whether you're time blocking, you're monotasking, you're multitasking, be present where you are. Don't try to oversell it. Don't try to overdo it. Don't try to say yes to every single project that comes your way. Part of managing tasks is managing your energy. So even if we're not able to talk about all the tools that I would like you to talk about, but I will mention a few. Number one tool is Notion. So for my tax management, I use Notion. There is Notion, there is Airtable, there is Trello. Yes, it's now called Trello. There's Trello. There are different tools. There are different task management tools that you can use. Another thing you have to understand is by controlling your calendar, by controlling these tools, the reason I don't want to bring too many tools is I don't want you to be dependent on the tools. I don't want you to think that a tool will make you more productive. I don't want you to think that once you buy this tool, once you buy this app, once you get this thing, it's all over. You're going to be the most productive person. You're going to be able to leverage your skills, leverage your ideas. That's not true. This is my opinion, and I know it's true. The tools don't make you better in a way. By using the tools, you get better. The tools themselves cannot exist or be used without you. So we are the ones that make the tools better, that eventually improve us. We are not going to be totally dependent on tools, but see tools as an asset. So when I talk about tools that you can use for project management or anything, don't see them as the last thing. See them as an asset, as something that you can use. An amazing tool that most people are using now is ChatGPT. ChatGPT, people are afraid of it. People are have different conversations about it. But this is my own perspective. It's a tool. It's a tool that has been created to assist you. It's artificial intelligence. See it as assistant intelligence if you want to think about it from that perspective. But it's yet to assist you and to make certain things easier for you. I asked a question that I wish I was around during the Google era, so I know what people thought about Google search, because I think we have been having the same conversations we are having now about AI. AI tools are fantastic, but you have to train them to work for the person you are. Any tool you use, whether it's paper or digital, you make the tool better because of use. So you have to use them consistently. You have to review them. Don't just go and download an app because everybody on TikTok and their mama is talking about it. No. Figure out what works for you. Are you a digital babe or guy, or are you an analog person? Are you someone that thinks on paper, or are you somebody that needs your phone every minute? I just started using the reminder app on my iPhone and I'm loving it. I think I love the features. I love certain things about it. But to me, it's an absolutely fantastic tool that I believe everybody should use. Now, my notes app, I don't use it so often. Someone else could be totally dependent on their notes app. These are all tools. Earlier, when I mentioned Notion, Trello, I then mentioned Airtable. But another amazing tool is the calendar on your phone. All these tools are meant to help you. So those are the questions that you ask yourself before you choose a tool, before you start paying 6.99, sometimes £1.99. They give you all these ridiculous prices and then you pay. But ask yourself a couple of questions as you're showing up for yourself every day. Will I use it? What do I do normally? What are my habits? What are the rituals I have? How do I communicate? How do I think? Am I someone that thinks on paper, or am I someone that needs to have graphics? So showing up for yourself also means having meeting with yourself, having conversations with yourself. And today is Friday, so you should be having a conversation about your weekday and plan for your weekend so that your Saturday, Sunday is already planned effectively. What happened during the week that you want to change? Even if you have all the tools, the only way you can get the best out of the tools is if you give it data. So data gives us information that we need to know how we are doing. The only way to measure your success when you use tools is if you use it. Now, do you use these tools, or are you someone that just thinks from the top of your head? Showing up for yourself daily means making your life easier, making it possible for you to do certain things. And if you have a team, for them to exist without you. So, as a recap, we've talked about task management, we talked about monotasking and why I monotask, we talked about Pomodoro, time blocking, and a couple of other things. I think, in my opinion, whichever tool you use, whichever technique you use, it's not certain techniques can work for you for a certain period, and after a while, you will not work for you. That doesn't mean you should force it. Try something else. I would say be adventurous. You have my permission to scroll on social media, but you also have my permission to be adventurous. So be as adventurous as you want to be when it comes to exploring tools. And if it doesn't work for you, there are no permanent friends, not permanent interests. There are no permanent tools, but permanent interest. Are you interested in it? Are you using it? Or do you just want to have it on your phone to occupy space? That's a question you have to ask yourself. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. If there are no questions, I'm going to end it early today. Tomorrow we'll meet again, same time, 9 p.m. and Sunday 9 p.m. And I think we're keeping the 9 p.m. slots for the weekends. I'm not sure if we're going to do that for weekdays, but weekends 9 p.m. I am here. So stay blessed and we'll see you tomorrow. Cheers. Bye. Hi, Instagram. Thank